Hey, welcome back to another episode of ISBN-Depth, your SEPLS podcast. Today we are very excited. We're going to be talking about Women's History Month because it is March. So we are also going to be discussing a few different topics today. We're obviously going to go over our programs and stuff. We're going to talk about some of our favorite female authors and characters, but we are also going to be discussing The Next Ship Home by Heather Webb, which coincides with our Fireside Book Club. So upcoming events, though it has already passed, March 2nd was National Read Across America Day. Luckily, here at the library, you can celebrate National Read Across America Day any day. So come and visit us, get yourself a book, and read as a late celebration.
Just read. Just always read.
Always read.
Always celebrate. March is National Women's History Month, the best month.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is also Irish American Heritage Month. We would be remiss if we didn't say that. Our coworker David might come hunt us down.
Very true.
We'll give him a reason to listen to the podcast.
Very true.
So,
yeah, and we'll give him even more reason. We do have St. Patty's Day coming up, correct? Mm-hmm. March 17th. A lot of you probably already know this, but just in case you don't, we do have what we call our Lucky Day collection here at the library. It is housed on a little green cart on the second floor in front of the adult fiction, if you've never seen it before. So our Lucky Day collection consists of our what we call binge box movies. So if you're watching this, you can see we have it on display here in the center, but if you're not, a binge box is basically one box that has about 4 to 5 different movies in it. So it all coincides in one main topic. I believe we have the Anne Hathaway one here with us today, which is obviously the best.
When Anne Hathaway is the best title down there, but there's other ones down there.
Mm-hmm.
Horror movies, Christmas specials, Pixar collections.
Yep.
And what's special about the binge boxes is they're you can't really reserve them. They're kind of first come, first serve.
Yep, that's why it's called Lucky Day, because if you find it, it is your lucky day.
But you can only, so if you're one of those people who check out DVDs on the regular, you probably already know this, but you can check out 5 DVDs typically. But when it comes to a binge box, you can't check out 5 binge boxes. You can check out 1 binge box and then 4 other DVDs, but you can't check out 5. That would be too many discs.
Yeah. So. Actually, you can only have 1 binge box out.
You can't have any DVDs at the same time?
So.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wrong. Back that up. Because I just don't think about it because a lot of people don't get binge boxes. Or if they do, they only get the 1. But I remember if Charlie gets a binge box, she'll just get a binge box and Justin will get the DVD.
Yeah. It's okay.
We'll edit it back. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead. So another special thing about the binge box movies is that if you get a binge box, it also means you cannot have any other DVDs out on your account. Obviously, we have a normal DVD limit of 5, but because most of our binge boxes have 5 or 4 DVDs in it, that's the only DVD item you can have out on your account.
Mm-hmm. So that does not apply to if you're going through the regular collection. Sometimes there's double or triple features in a box.
Yes,
those are different. You can check those out along with the other DVDs, but no, the specific binge box, and they'll be clearly labeled binge box, and they will always be on that green cart.
Yep,
so.
Correct.
Let's see here. Coming up in March is also kind of the wrap up to our Sevier County Reads. We usually start that in around September.
Yeah,
I think that was when we started. Or we put
in the fall.
The county picks out a book that they encourage people to read, and then we're having Dr. Chris Magra, a UT guest speaker, coming. He's going to be discussing John Meacham's The Soul of America. So that was the book picked for the Sevier County Reads.
Yep.
We've had it downstairs in the lobby next to the door to check out. It's on Libby. So there's still some time if you want to check it out. I know it looks thick, but really, literally half the book is citations and a bibliography. I've read a bit of it, and it was pretty good. So he's basically looking over the past presidencies and times that were fraught. So obviously we're all familiar with the political climate nowadays, unless you've lived under a rock. If so, lucky you. But how people are very polarized and divided, and the book is looking about in the history where the other administrations like Lincoln and things like that have been polarized and divided, and how they came back from that, and that there's hope that we can come back from our divide we were in. So anyway, again, March 16th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. here at KFL.
Yep.
Dr. Chris Magra has graciously come over to be a moderator and talk about the soul of America.
Yeah. Some other KFL events that we have going on is our very, very exciting Pink Alicious and Peterific Crazy Hair and Tutu party. And let me just tell you, I am so excited. I will not be working the event, I don't think. But if so, I will definitely be coming with my craziest tutu, my hair all over the place, which it's already crazy as it is. But it is going to be a super exciting day. That is going to be on March 25th. Like I said, here at the King Family Library.
I'm sure that's a Saturday, too.
I think it is a Saturday. Yep. And that'll be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we will have a snack bar, stories, crafts, games. So come dressed up in your tutus, have your hair all crazy. I guarantee you it will be a blast. So
you might have a hard time having a better time than our director is. She's really excited about it.
Absolutely. Honestly, I think everyone who volunteered for the event is more excited than any child will be. And that's because how often do you get to come to work dressed in a crazy colored tutu? Mm-hmm. You know? Or at least have it be acceptable to show up and look that way.
So, Kodak will be having a Ratatouille dinner and movie party. I hope they have spaghetti. Anyway, that's going to be from March 28th, 3 to 5 p.m. It's free of charge and open to the public. They do ask that you call ahead of time if you're attending. I'm sure that's just to know the amount of food they're going to be having and everything.
Yep.
I think previously they did a similar food and movie thing, and they said it was a big event. They had a really good turnout.
Yeah.
So I hope the Ratatouille one is really good.
I know part of me wants to go. Just because it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sick on March 28th. I've got to go to Kodak.
Exactly.
But I don't know what they're having, so don't go and expect spaghetti. I just hope they have spaghetti.
That's just our assumption and our dream, if we're being completely honest. So this month also marks the 30th anniversary of the 1993 blizzard. I know we've talked about it a little bit in the past here on our podcast. Obviously, we film up here in the History Center, so we talk to our historians up here quite a bit, and they are still taking a few like video recounts and interviews and stuff, but they were also hoping to have a little event kind of to commemorate the event, look back on it, see actual stories and accounts of people who experienced it. So we don't have any specifics yet, but go ahead and stay tuned for that. Our History Center staff is working really hard to try and put that together for you guys.
And don't forget, in general, they also look forward to other just general oral interviews. I know
all the time.
They're still looking for veterans to come and share their stories, or veterans' families from any of the wars. Yeah. So, just feel free. You can always give us a call, and we can transfer you up to Lisa up in the History Center, and she can give you more information.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're really, like, I was not alive during the 1993 blizzard, but I heard about it. So without my parents or cousins telling me about it, there's no way for me to know. But everybody has a crazy story, like going down to they had to like drive across like my papa lives in Seymour, so they had to go drive around like Sugarloaf Road, and the car got stuck, and mom had to like get out and walk with my little brother all the way to the house, and then it was, but like without people sharing these stories, you'll never know about it. Yeah, and like some people are like, yeah, sure, it's a blizzard, it's not a big event, but like everybody who was alive at that point goes, yeah, I remember where I was at the blizzard or how it was. So like, just share your story.
Yeah, it'd absolutely. Be fun. Speaking of making history, we did want to discuss obviously some kick butt female authors that have made history in the past. So I'll kick us off by Agatha Christie. When I was doing the research for this podcast, I actually found a pretty surprising fact that I'll get to in a second. But it is estimated that she has sold over 2 billion copies of her crime novels and has been published in 44 different languages, which I think is the coolest thing ever. But that makes her the best-selling author for fiction according to the Guinness Book of Records. Not the best-selling female, just the best-selling author. which I think is very, very cool. But my fun fact that I found is that she's actually written 6 romance novels that I had never known about under a pen name. And I just thought that was very interesting. And her pen name was actually Mary Westmacott or something like that. Westmacott, yes. Mary Westmacott, which I thought was really cool.
I actually, the first, and I think only Agatha, I want to read more Agatha Christie.
Yeah,
It's on the TBR list. But I actually read an Agatha Christie book for a college class I had, and it wasn't even a fictional college. It was for biblical archaeology.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I might get the title wrong, but I think it was something along the lines of "Come Tell Me How You Live."
Okay.
And I don't remember if her husband was an archaeologist or something, but she went on like dig sites with him, I think, and it was one of those cool. like stories she was telling. So, let's see. Moving on. Not that Agatha Christie isn't interesting, but Mary Shelley, I think, has her beat. She is the mother of science. Very true. She's the mother of science fiction. Yeah. With her novel Frankenstein, published in 1818, and she was pretty dark herself and a romantic and things like that.
I loved learning her story in school. Like her husband, like everything was just like her parents. Like it was crazy to me. So I always enjoyed like the history behind authors, especially when you get like the dark and twisted science fiction authors, because their personal lives kind of
really interesting.
Drive their like imagination. And it's like, oh my gosh, how could a person write something so like just crazy and twisted? And then you look at their life and you're like, that makes so much sense to me. So I just think it's cool. But going on, Edith Wharton was the first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize in 1921 for her novel The Age of Innocence, which I've never read. It's on the TBR as well for me.
You might end up reading it. Spoiler alert. So we've got our next few podcasts planned out. We generally have them planned out in a year in advance, but we're going to do a Rory Gilmore reading challenge.
Which I'm so excited about.
And The Age of Innocence is on there.
I mean, hey, I don't need an excuse to go buy a book. So, because we all know I will go and buy a book instead of borrowing it, which is bad habits, and do not do that.
This message has been sponsored by Books of Million.
Exactly.
Next up, we have Selma Lagerlöf, first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1909. She's a Swedish author. I kind of tried to look to see if there was a specific work she was recommended for, and I think it's just generally her body of work. Yeah. Yeah.
The last one on our list is someone we have discussed here on the podcast before, and that we are big fans of. That is Toni Morrison. She was actually the first Black woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, and that was in 1993. And obviously, we've talked about her before. I mean, her work tends to speak for itself. It's just amazing. So
a circulation fun fact, and tell us if you like these. We'll put more into the podcast. But one of the top circulating female authors of 2022 was Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And I think I asked Patience about it, and I think it was like one person who had checked it out a lot of, like, multiple times. So, who hurt you?
And can we join a book club with you? Because same. Because honestly, Pride and Prejudice is in my top 3 favorite novels ever. Which I guess we'll kind of get into that later when we talk about our favorite authors and our favorite female characters. But as surprising as that was to me, part of me was a little happy, even if it was just one person that checked it out a million times, because A, that person either is a slow reader like I can be sometimes because you forget, or B, you just loved it so much or are hurt, and I love you, whoever you are. So
speaking of Pride and Prejudice, Lisa Christian, our historian, she recommended because she's a big Jane Austen fan.
Yeah, same.
And she recommended a book called Longbourn, and it's about the servants.
She was telling me about that, yeah.
I read it like a month or two ago, and it was pretty good, but the sad thing was it just made me want to reread Pride and Prejudice. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't Downton Abbey, if you're thinking like that, servant.
Yeah.
Because you did get glimpses of the upstairs life or whatever, but they were very distant and stuff. And if you think about it, the gentry probably weren't all chummy with their servants like we see in like Downton Abbey.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
And it was really funny because Darcy like scared the crap out of everybody, which he would have. He was so wealthy fitting. And intimidating. Yeah. So he was only really nice to his friends.
I love that so much.
Yeah, it was a pretty good book. So if you want to like branch out, and because there's quite a few Pride and Prejudice retelling. I think there's like Mr. Darcy Takes a Wife was one that's been recommended.
Prejudice and Zombies. I mean,
that one wasn't that great.
Yeah, no.
But
I
refuse. One had ninjas in it. But yeah, so
yep,
women for the win.
Women for the win.
I support women's rights and women's wrongs.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And obviously we're going to be talking about women the entire podcast, so there's no sense in me trying to use that as a transition, but we will now be going on to our favorite female authors, our favorite female characters, and I'll just go ahead and kick us off. Obviously, I've talked about it probably too many times, and you guys are probably going to be sick of the authors I mention, but too bad. Here you are, still listening to my voice. So, I will have to say my favorite female author of just all time is Louisa May Alcott, and that's just because her book did impact me so much when I was younger. Obviously, she wrote Little Women, and she has a few different spin-offs and sequels to that as well.
Little Men and Joe's Boys off the top of my head.
Yep. Another one that really impacted me when I was in the 5th grade was Number the Stars, and if you've never read it, I would highly recommend it. It is a tween book, but honestly, I think it left such a lasting impression on me then. I feel like it could do that to someone at any age. It's about this little family that is going through World War II. And it's just very, like, sad and disheartening, but at the same time, you, like, really root for the main girl in it, and she's just so young, and you just kind of see yourself in her sometimes. So it's a beautiful book. It was written by Lowry, which also wrote The Giver, if you're familiar with her. So if you like The Giver, definitely give this a shot. Even if you don't, just read it. I promise you'll love it.
I haven't read it. I read The Giver. I don't think I completed the trilogy. I read the second one. The second one was sad. And I can't do it. And I never read the third one.
See, I didn't read...
Is this a Holocaust book?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's sad. Which I actually never read the sequels or anything to The Giver. I just remember being in the 5th grade or 6th grade or something around there in the library, and we watched it in class one day, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's so hot.
Is that the one with Taylor Swift in it?
No.
Okay, because I know, like, the only movie I know of The Giver was the one with Taylor, and I haven't watched it, but it was one of she was one of her favorite books, so she basically kind of self-inserted her as the main girl.
I don't remember her being in it, but honestly, I don't remember anything but the guy in it, because I just watched it for him over and over again.
Well, I remember when we read The Giver, at the very end, my teacher goes, okay, so did they live or did they die? And we're all like, they lived. And she goes, well, it's really interesting because when this book first came out, and it's been, because it's one of those books people love to teach in class, that some people actually think they don't make it. Which obviously they do, because the next couple books have characters, obviously, from the trilogy. But it's one of those, I never thought of it, because I think it took a while for the sequels to come out. So people were like, did they live or did they die? Because them sliding down on the sled to a snowy house in the distance could be heaven. But I guess us in, like, 8th grade were like, they lived.
Honestly, I feel like when I watched it, because I honestly don't even have, like, any memory of reading the book. I know we had to. So, like, I know I have, but I just don't have a memory of it just because the movie stuck out to me so much. But I feel like when I watched the movie, I also thought that they had died.
No, I thought we all thought they lived. It was kind of out of the blue that she'd asked that. We're like, no.
Well, oh gosh, I've lost my train of thought. Other authors. Okay, here we go. I'm just gonna quick mention 3 because I've talked about them a million times. Kira Cash, Jenny Han, Josie Silver, all great authors, more on the romance side, but still just great. As far as female characters go, one of my absolute favorites, obviously, is Jo March from Little Women, because you can't really get much better than Jo, in my personal opinion. Glass Menagerie, Laura Wingfield. I know that may be, like, very random to some people, but she's just so fragile, and I just loved how Tennessee Williams mirrored so much of the actual Glass Menagerie in that character, because it was kind of just one of many symbols for her. So I'm like a sucker for symbolism and imagery, so she just really stuck out to me. And then Nancy Drew, because I always read Nancy Drew when I was in intermediate school. It literally didn't matter what order it was in. I just kept grabbing whatever I could. So
I've read some Nancy Drew. I think like there was one about the trunk or whatever was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But there's another, if you like female sleuth series, Trixie Belden was a series. My aunt gifted it to me.
I remember that book.
And it recently, a few years ago, had a reprint. And the thing is, though, it's like the first few books are written by the one author, and then the rest of the entire like 60, 70 books is ghost written. But yeah, it's a nice like little change. It takes place up in northern New York, and it's very idealized and everything like that. But as far as, and she's not necessarily as mature as Nancy Drew, like as a person, but it's a nice like little kind of comforting read, and we might have some of that down the library. But it's just like if you've read some Nancy Drew, if you've read some Hardy Boys, give that a try. It's like a nice little summer afternoon read.
Absolutely.
I struggled when I came up with female characters. I also put Jo March because I, being an aspiring writer and a bit tomboyish, really like Jo. And the other ones are from various other franchises. Yuko Ichihara, she's from the Holic manga series. I love her a lot. Puck from Scorpio Races. I think, well, her actual name in this book's Kate Connolly, but they call her Puck. Anyway, what I like about her is she's like so in love with where she lives and the culture she lives in, and fiercely protective. And she does one of the first in her book. There's the race is called the book's called the Scorpio Races, which is based off the race in the book. And people ride these water horses that come out of the water that are deadly. And she is the first woman to ride in the race, and she does it on her own horse. But anyway, she's just a really strong person, and I really admired that because, like, growing up, I never really had a place that I felt like I would want to stay in, and so I always admired that difference in us.
Yeah.
I do try to read Scorpio Races once a year, usually around November, because the first line of the book's like, it's the 1st of November, so that means someone's going to die. I badly paraphrase that. But it's one of my favorite books. And then Kita from Atlantis, The Lost Empire. I really like strong women.
And that's okay. We all love strong women.
And then for authors, Maggie Stiefvater, who wrote Scorpio Races, she also wrote the Raven Boys and blew one of her female characters in that. She's pretty interesting. Marissa Meyer, I think I've talked about before. Natasha Pulley. Himuro Arakawa. I've always just referred to her as the Full Metal Alchemist writer. Yeah. But actually, she's kind of goes by like a somewhat of a pen name, and it's just a twist on her name to make her name more masculine. Okay. When she was publishing it, but no, she's very much she's got several series, but Full Metal Alchemist is what she's most well known for, and and then the series takes place around 2 boys, but she's very well known for having very strong female characters. Yeah, they tend to be love interests, but at the same time, that's not all they are. Yeah, and they all like have positions of power. Like if you're watching the YouTube video, I've got the example book up here, and it's got Olivier Armstrong on here, and she's like the Brigadier General. Yeah, and she's known for being the Ice Queen, and like she's not afraid of anything. And then you've got like Winry, who does the metal limbs, so she's like in kind of your STEM representation, but she's very much like unapologetic, and she's like that's her thing. And Riza Hawkeye, who's also in the army. So like, but they're like realistic, full 3D written characters. Actually, she's got a new series coming out soon in a few months. I'm waiting for it to come out. I don't know a whole bunch about it because it's not obviously been translated much in the United States.
Yeah, but I've never read the manga, obviously, but I have watched the series, and I absolutely love it. She was kind of one of my favorites just because I loved how polar opposite she was from her brother. Yeah. Because I always loved how she was, like, small and just, like, straightforward, get stuff done, like, you know, cold-hearted, Ari. But not cold-hearted.
My favorite of Ari.
And then you have her brother, who's just, like, this big guy, but he's just, like, a teddy bear.
He looks like one of the carnival weightlifters with the mustache. And and he's just like hard eyes. He's just a really soft character, which is cool for her to depict a man like that who like
so masculine,
openly cries and likes flower arranging and things like that. And so it's she kind of hits all kinds of characters
Yeah.
and stuff without, demeaning them in any kind of way.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
and if you don't want to obviously watch or read the book, you can watch the anime, which we recommend, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. There's 2 of them, but Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood follows the story of the manga completely. So.
Yeah, and to me is better than the other one.
Yeah, the other one kind of went off on its own ending, sort of like Game of Thrones does.
Yeah.
If you'll ever finish that. Anyway, so our next discussion and the final discussion is the Next Ship poem. What is the author's name?
Heather Webb.
Heather Webb. So if this is once a month, like the Fireside Book Club, it used to be run by the library, but our person who ran it ended up going on to another position, and we just didn't get anybody to fill it.
Yep.
So it's run by the ladies who were part of the group originally, and they get a book like once a month, and it tends to be historical fiction.
Yeah.
And they'll meet. I don't have the days they meet, but it's definitely, you can check our calendar. It's always listed in there. But we were originally going to have the
librarian who ran the
it,
meeting. Yeah.
But we wanted to read the book anyway. We were looking through their options, and they post their options well advanced, so you can read them on Libby, and they usually try to get a couple different copies for the library.
Yep.
So we looked at this one ahead of time, and we're like, "That sounds good." So basically, it's in a nutshell, it's an Ellis Island immigration story set in early 1900s. It's let me see if I can pull up a date. It's really early 1900s. I wanted to know in case someone was curious.
Give me a look at it.
I think she writes about it. Be interesting to do a reading group question too.
I like that she includes it.
About 1902. So the book. So the book is set. It's an Ellis Island immigration story. It's set in about early 1900s, about 1902, 1908 ish.
Yeah.
It's really early 1900s. And so it follows these 2 women, and it switches point of view between the chapters. Alma and Francesca. Francesca is from Italy and is coming to the United States, and Alma is starting out her new job at the immigration center of Ellis Island. And it does have other historical background drops with like worker strikes and things like that, and what was going on, and the switching of commissioners and stuff, which while the characters themselves are fictionalized, she kind of based that stuff off of real people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I read it a few weeks ago. I'm a sucker for historical fiction.
Yeah.
It's a nice comfort read. And this book was a really good one for March Women Histories Month. I don't know if they did that on purpose or not, but all the women, pardon me, all the women characters in this kind of all interact. It gives you different facets of how like different people interact in different situations.
Yeah.
Some decide to keep their head down in the sand and let things go on, or other ones stand up, and then neither of them's quite wrong, because it's women trying to protect themselves and
trying to survive.
Yeah, and that's what the book kind of looks at. Trigger warning: sexual assault.
Yes.
Francesca, when she's getting off Ellis Island, one of the commissioners won't give her her papers unless she gives him a sexual favor, and then but it shows things like women being in the positions they're put in and have to kind of.
It's very real.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And then like with Alma's mother, who was married, had children, and then got remarried. Her remarriage life isn't good, but she can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Alma herself comes up against an arranged marriage that she's not even asked and consented to, that her parents choose for her.
Yep.
And the only way she can leave that is leave the house. And they expect her to get married. And the reason because she hadn't gotten married at that point, she got the job that she did, and then eventually leads into the engagement to a not so great character. And so, and then you even got the an upper class woman who is spoiled later to be like a single mother, and she was probably originally from like England, but then she had to immigrate to the United States because she couldn't be a single mother in high class society, whereas America was a little bit more open to it.
Yeah.
But that's because she had money. And Francesca gets put in a similar situation because, spoiler alert, she ends up getting pregnant from the one dalliance with the guy. I wouldn't even say dalliance because it was the one assault from the guy, and ends up mirroring that woman, which is her employer, almost mirroring her situation, except she doesn't have money.
Yeah.
So it's a really good book, and it's even though the realities of women, what they were facing, were harsh, I wouldn't say the book itself was harshly written. It's it's pretty optimistic.
It is.
Like Francesca ends up still getting to be the man she wants to be. Alma gets independence, living in an apartment with her friends, and gets to go on and working towards the career she wants to work on. And then there's also hinted at a guy she could get together with because, it's part romance novel, but also kind of like, women probably need to be married in this time period. Which is, she, if she couldn't be alone, a widow the whole time, or not a widow, a single spinster.
Sure. I mean, that's how things were back then. It was just, I like how the book has very real expectations of the characters, the same expectations that women in that time period actually were held to. I like how she's very good at just very subtle hints of like very harsh realities. One of the lines that stuck out to me in the book is when Alma's actually on her way on her first day to work at Ellis Island, and she notes that Lady Liberty had her back to Ellis Island, which I thought was just very striking because it's one of those things where obviously it's supposed to be land of the free, Lady Liberty standing proud and tall, but it was very true in reality because people did have very harsh interactions with immigrants and honestly still do. So I really loved how they incorporated that so like small comment, but that meant so much and held so much truth to it. Because I mean, you see it in the book. I mean, every single person comes through Ellis Island hoping for this brand new life and hoping to be treated better than they were because they all left something so bad and horrible, just like Francesca. But then what they find...
She was leaving an abusive father.
Yep. Her and her sister both were fleeing from Sicily. And then unfortunately, spoiler alert, her sister doesn't make it past the island. And
she gets sick and dies, which is thus a real reality.
Yeah. So there's a lot of truth to it, even if it's fiction.
There's some, I was flipping through the reading group guide questions. Some books have that in the end, and I don't know if the women from Fireside, do these or just, sort of talk how we're talking. But discuss Francesca's reasons for leaving Italy, what circumstances would cause her to leave your home. But she was fleeing because of a man, and then Francesca is warned that some immigrant women have been funneled to workhouses or servitude by scam artists, which is also a thing that happened to women. Describe Alma's mother, Joanna. How does her own security compete with her children's needs? So she doesn't stand up to her husband because it's safer for her that way. And then Francesca and Maria are first denied entry to the U.S. because they have no male relatives to meet them and no employment arranged. So again, women are reliant on men to move forward. There's other ones back here.
Which I think that is why I like how it ends so much. I like the fact that it's very truthful in the fact that women did have to rely on men, even if they didn't want to, even if that's who they were fleeing from. So I like the fact that Alma, even though she had an option there at the end, you do kind of assume that they are together. I like that she didn't just go straight to that. I like that she still has her independence.
I think it made her ending stronger, though, because it's a romance sort of read.
Yeah.
I hope she gets together with Jeremy.
We love Jeremy. I sat there, and while we were reading it, I was like, please don't tell me Jeremy's a bad guy, because she finished it, obviously, long before I did, because Sam is Sam, and I am me. But I sat there, I was like, oh my gosh, is he really just not a good guy after all? And she was like, don't you dare diss Jeremy like that. I was like, oh, okay.
Also, speaking of it being Women's History Month, but also Irish American Month, Jeremy's an Irish immigrant.
So it's literally the perfect book for this month, for March, for everything that we celebrate in March here at the library. It is a perfect read, in my opinion.
I do have one final recommendation. So if people do enjoy the Ellis Island kind of reading, and if they want a women's book and an Irish history, not Irish, a little bit Irish history, Irish immigration. Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah, you tell me about
the movie has Saoirse Ronan in it. This is actually one of the few movies that I say is better than the book. I cannot, and the book title's the same name. I cannot remember the author's last name. It's a male author, and I think his last name's COLM or something like that. But we definitely have it here at the library. We just didn't pull it for the podcast. But it's very much similar. It's set in the 1950s, but she comes through Ellis Island, and the only major difference between the book and the movie is in the book she has brothers, and in the movie it's just her sister, and her mother. And when her sister dies, she has to go back to Ireland, and it's implied she needs to take care of her mother, which kind of made me angry when I read the book, because I'd watched the movie first, and I read the book, and I was like, she has brothers who live in Ireland who could perfectly take care of her mother, but they expected the woman who had already started her life in another country to come back and take care of the mother. So it was an interesting, angry, but anyway, in the book in the movie they didn't include the brothers, which was it still had a good impact on the story. I just wasn't as angry. But so that's very much in line, one of my favorites.
So I think we're going to leave the next ship home discussion at that. Obviously, we highly recommend that you read it. It was beautiful. I would recommend it to anyone, especially if you do like historical fiction, because there's a lot of just very truthful nods and symbols and themes throughout. And if you're interested in the Fireside Book Club, come in, talk to us. We'd be more than happy to find you their schedule. They do meet, I believe, every month.
Yeah, once a month. I think on Fridays.
Yep.
It's either the second or the third Friday of the month.
Yeah. To be safe, just come in and visit. Pick up the book. Pick up a little pamphlet for the Fireside Book Club, and just talk to us. We enjoy seeing you guys in person.
And I'm sure they would enjoy having some more members.
We always do.
So what's next month's podcast?
April next month, we will be doing our 1-year anniversary of ISBN-Depth. So we're basically going to be taking a look at how the podcast started and where it started, where it's going, and the things we're excited for the next program year.
I can't believe people have listened to us for a whole year. Ben doesn't count.
Ben was, kind of forced into it.
And he has to listen to us multiple times through editing. But if you're still with us for the whole year, congratulations. You deserve a cupcake.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you're just now tuning in, that's fine too. We have a whole year's worth of stuff you can listen to.
Yeah.
You can ignore the announcements bits. You can
just let our, just turn us on when you're falling asleep at night, and hopefully our voices won't drift into your dreams. So. Or maybe they will.
Nightmares.
Maybe that's a great thing. Maybe that's what you want. So, but to say that, thank you guys for watching. We really do appreciate it. Thank you to Ben, as always, for making this thing possible. And just thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next month. Bye.